Growing up, my mom was very sex positive, but I think she also has her own relationship with sex, and I was so confused of the other side.
Like, what's repression?
Right? I'm like, that sounds interesting.
Welcome.
Blair Imani, educator and content creator.
Author of Modern Herstory and Read This to Get Smarter.
I actually had a miscarriage a few years ago. I think it was in 2018. I didn't plan to be pregnant, and honestly, had that pregnancy continued, then I probably wouldn't have had an abortion. But I find it really important to talk about because everyone wants to talk about pregnancy and how exciting it is to be pregnant. There's not a lot of conversation about pregnancy loss or stillbirth or miscarriage, and yet those things are extremely common and something that a lot of people go through.
Experiencing that, I'm sure, is both like, oh, I can get pregnant, and the extreme heartache and pain and loss.
What has been interesting about that is my own life journey, whatever, my mom's sex positivity. To me, sex is very private. And I think for a little while when I first converted to Islam, that was a rebound reaction to feelings of unworthiness as a sexually active woman.
What do you mean unworthiness?
What's up, baby mama?
Do you want to feel? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for coming. I've been looking forward to this for a long time now, so I'm so happy that you're here. I know that there are so many things we could talk about. What do you feel called to talk about today?
Well, obviously the pregnancy, that's like a big thing. And anytime I talk about my pregnancy, I also talk about the miscarriage I had.
You believe it's magic.
The idea of bringing a baby into this world has me thinking about all the lives I've lived over these 31 years, almost 32. So probably want to talk about that, and then I've been reflecting a lot on my relationship with my mom because I'm going to be a mom.
Yes, you already are a mom.
That's true.
That is the gift you get to, and you've been a mom for a really long time.
Yes.
So that's going to be really exciting, and I can't wait. Let's go inside and sit down again. I actually want to bring you to a really special place that we've never shot before. So this is going to be a first for me.
I hope it matches the fit.
You might be pleasantly surprised. Congratulations!
Yes.
Hey.
My husband put a baby in me.
Wow. It's so fascinating because my kids are 2 and 4, and so having the discussion now around babies, right?
Yeah.
And it's like trying to give some responsibility, or not onus, like onus to the dad, while also acknowledging that like I'm the one who grew you, and so that language. Because it's like
so interesting, and like just seeing in my own family, like, so my husband's been going to all of my appointments with me. They're so impressed with him, and I'm like, he's not even the one on the table. But they're like, good for him going to all the appointments. I'm like, I would like some applause for going to all my appointments and get liters of blood taken out. That's that's a exaggeration, but I feel like they take in hella blood.
Yeah. Oh no, it's crazy.
All the blood tests.
And you are doing it. You're growing in a life. Every hair, every toenail, every limb,
every kick in the uterus.
It's you. It's really you. How are you liking it or disliking it?
Honestly, I'm not hating it. My mom was convinced I wouldn't like it because I don't like to be inconvenienced, as I'm sure most people feel. I didn't have a lot of nausea, which is good. It's kind of like intermittent, but I didn't have it in the first trimester. I think the biggest thing is that I am tired. So thank you for filming up an hour so I could take a nap.
I love that for you. And then also because like you can't get reliable sleep, which is the crappy part too about it, because people are like, when you're pregnant, they're like, sleep now, because when the baby comes, you're like, bitch, I have not been sleeping for 9 months.
Yo, can I tell you that I get pretty good sleep, but I have to get up to pee all the time. And the one thing people don't talk about is how gassy you are, because your entire digestive system changes. Where your stomach is changes. Your intestines move around, and it moves slower, and because of that, it creates more flatulence. And so I feel like we need to be talking about the gas as much as we talk about the nausea, because...
Yes. I was a COVID pregnant person, which was like actually a blessing in some ways, but we used to go on walks and I'd be so gassy. And you know how we have like the 6 feet rule of like people, but sometimes you just like thought that they were further than they would. And it would echo. And he would be so embarrassed. He's just like, oh my gosh. And it was like, whatever. Like,
yeah, my husband's having a hard time adjusting. But he also swears that I was this gassy before, and I don't think that's true.
Okay. And it goes away, because you know what? It doesn't go away when you give birth.
That's what I heard.
So for a minute, I was like, is this like who I am forever? And I had like literally Guinness Book of World Records, gassy grandma. Like she had these belches that were like, everybody knows exactly what the Beulah belch sounds like. So I was like, maybe this is how I have come into this like hereditary part of my life. But it goes away. you get so many things back, and then of course you get this beautiful baby. This is not your first time being pregnant.
No, it's not. Yeah, so I actually had a miscarriage a few years ago. I think it was in 2018. And the thing is that I can't remember if it was in 2017 or 2018, but I remember it was when I was living in New York, and it was just... I didn't plan to be pregnant, and honestly, had that pregnancy continued, then I probably would have had an abortion. But it's still kind of this interesting negotiation of like realizing, oh my gosh, we could get pregnant. Also, we didn't plan this. Also, like, there's like a consideration there that we weren't able to make, and like a decision, I guess, we weren't able to make. But I find it really important to talk about because everyone wants to talk about pregnancy and how exciting it is to be pregnant and how fun it is to try to conceive and all of that. But there's not a lot of conversation about, you know, early term labor or preterm labor rather, or pregnancy loss or stillbirth or miscarriage. And yet those things are extremely common and something that a lot of people go through. And so I think it's important to talk about the entire conversation.
Absolutely. Experiencing that, I'm sure, is both like, oh, I can get pregnant, and the extreme heartache and pain and loss of, is this how pregnancies are always going to end? And of course the sadness and grieving of the way that your child, didn't get an opportunity to really like live the life. So how did you guys go from that to, because this was an intentional baby, right?
Yeah, we planned the crap out of this baby. You know, we've been together for 10 years, and the plan was, 2025, we're going to have a baby. And actually, because of the wildfires and because my family was so impacted by the wildfires in Altadena, the first thing I texted on, I think it was January 8th, the day after the fire, I was like, we shouldn't try to have a kid this year. It feels irresponsible. And he was like, yeah, you're right. And so there's like a lot that happened between us, a lot of conversations, a lot of figuring out how we could like show up for our families and also continue to plan our family, that went into us deciding to start to try, to have this baby. And I think the biggest thing, finding out I was pregnant and also being really worried the whole time. Like, I was that girl who was like pissing on those tests all the time. They're expensive. I was like, I want to find out immediately. And then I also did things like, apparently something that went into, having a miscarriage was I didn't intend to get pregnant, so I was still on birth control. So that can also be like hostile to your body when you're trying to like grow a baby. I also was on ADHD medication in quite a high dose because I got really bad ADHD. So I spent a lot of time trying to get down to a lower dose and like make my body like into this like vehicle for health. But even though I had done all that work, I was completely stressed out the first few weeks that I was going to have a miscarriage, and I really had to lean into like positive self-talk, because if the only thing in my mind was like, what if I miscarry, what if I miscarry, what if I miscarry, that also creates stress hormones. And so every time that thought would come to my mind, I was like, I'm having a healthy pregnancy, I'm gonna have a very healthy baby, and like just like try to shout those negative thoughts out. And then another thing was that I didn't really realize it at the time, but I was frustrated in hindsight at my husband. We weren't married yet, but we'd been together for a long time, for not like coming with me. But I also think it was like a mix of like shame and grief, and like, sometimes that can come with like self-isolation. And so that's why I was really intent on like, okay, this pregnancy, I would like you to be super involved. And he's totally stepped up. I
love that. And it's, how are you supposed to know if you've never gone through something before, and if women don't talk about it?
That was my rationale too. And I wanted my friends to know, because if I had, experienced a miscarriage at this phase of my life, I definitely, would want to be supported by the people in my life. And I wouldn't want to have to go through that by myself or silently.
Mm-hmm. Can you walk me through that experience where you weren't planning or thinking about having a kid at all, to now? What happened between that and the conversation you had with your husband that was like, no, I think now is our time?
I mean, there's so many different things. One thing was just like, I wasn't at the stage in my life or my career where I wanted to have a kid.
Yeah.
And I think that was just like the biggest thing. It was like, I think it was also a few different things. Like, we kind of had to get out of this, like, I don't want to call it a scarcity mindset, because I don't think that's what it was. I think it was more of like just really consequence oriented, of thinking like, okay, this isn't the right time. I was definitely getting a little baby fever towards the end of 2024. And I was like, how about now? How about now? How about right when I come back from my trip in Australia and I'll get off birth control? And he was like, if you get pregnant this year, it won't be by me. Because he had his own boundaries. Because I think for both of us, it was like us trying to align these different trajectories of our lives and our careers, having grown up together over the past 10 years, and then kind of meet this moment. And really going from we're not doing this to deciding that we were going to do it also took a lot of faith and trusting each other that we would be able to do this, and not just like the act of conception, but also like the mental, the physical, the financial, and trusting that we would be able to overcome those barriers and obstacles together. And if you're like, we're planners, but we can't plan for a person who's not even here yet. So we have to kind of take a leap of faith.
Oh yeah, and there's a million circumstances that you can't plan for, and their personality, their needs, their health needs. And so I think that there's such a gift and a privilege in being able to intentionally bring a child into this world.
Oh, 100%. What has been interesting about that is I have lived my life in this very like atypical kind of non-traditional way, and so I think it's been also very surprising for my family members to see like, oh, you made a decision I respect. And yet you were bisexual and Muslim, you know. So I think that's been an interesting reveal.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's just more, I don't care what the circumstances are that you do it, but it's such a big responsibility and such a massive life shift. It is really nice when it's something that you asked for.
Yeah.
Even for your own peace of mind as a parent, like knowing that this is something that you intentionally asked for. Because any other massive consequence, right, like getting a job, like there should be some level of consent in it, and which is the gift of birth control. And I'm happy to hear that you're an advocate of birth control
100%.
For that exact reason.
And you know, I wondered if I like would, not that this was like a real potential, but I was like, will I suddenly become super pro-life? Like, you know, not having a miscarriage, you know, inshallah, carrying this pregnancy to term. And yet through every phase, through every ultrasound, I'm still like, no, like I would support someone if they got an abortion at this stage. I would support someone if they got an abortion at this stage. And I'm still against crisis pregnancy centers, and I still hold my values strong. And so I think that was like an interesting thing, because so many of the like pro-life advocates, the pro-birth, forced birth people will be like, well, you know, once you go through your own pregnancy, then you'll see. And I'm like, turns out I'm actually still 10 toes down for abortion.
It made me double down to be like, nobody who doesn't want this
to go through this should have to go through this. 100% not.
Yeah. How are you feeling leading up to having a baby? What are some of the ways that you're preparing yourself, or the ways that you're thinking about it? Like, what's top of mind for you?
We found out we're having a girl. My mom, I guess, with her witchy voodoo Creole vibes, knew that already and was already buying clothes for a girl, for like a 4-year-old girl. I'm like, why are you buying clothes for a grown child? You know, we don't even know her personality yet. What if she doesn't want to wear that? And my mom was like, well, the company was going out of business, so we had to make the decision. And then the other interesting thing is that we've had the name picked, and we're keeping the name like private. We've had this name picked for like the past 5 years, and my husband has like an email address that he's been like sending like letters and like emails to, like over the course of our travels, or anything that relates to like us having a baby. So we got all these bibs embroidered with her name, and he took a picture of it and emailed it. And I just think it's so cute, because it's like,
is that for the daughter to open one day? Like all of these emails of like how we've been preparing for you?
Right? Isn't that so sweet?
That's so sweet.
I know. I've not even sent one, but he's been holding it down for like the past 5 years. Like
the past 5 years?
Yeah. So this baby is like very wanted, very loved. But then I was also like, well, what if it's not a girl and we're like choosing a different name? And he's like, don't worry about it. And surprise. But I always say that Akeem is God's favorite, and that's why he just gets what he wants.
That's amazing. What a beautiful story. That's so beautiful. It's so beautiful too in hearing the reflection of how you guys were like very clear on your boundaries about when you were going to have kids, but it was never an if question.
Oh, definitely not. Like, I think same thing. I think marriage was more of an if for us, because we were like, the politics of it. Am I still a feminist if we're married? Da da da. But then like kids, I think we've known we wanted to have kids since like maybe the first year of us being together. Because I think also the way I dated was, I was like, hey, because we're in Louisiana where there's not access to abortion. And my thing is like, I'm on birth control. If we get pregnant while I'm in college, we are going to Florida, because that was like the closest place where you could get access to abortion care. And I just wasn't sleeping with people who weren't cool with that, because the lack of access was so immediate and so consequential. And even things like, if you had an ectopic pregnancy, you might not have been able to get care. And that's something that a lot of people are experiencing right now in places like Georgia, and it'll continue to grow.
Yes. I love that that's part of the safe sex conversation.
100%.
Like, it's not just about STIs and pregnancy, it's politics, because all that is connected.
I mean, if we have these powers that be that make sex political, and I believe that sex has always been political, but if they make pregnancy political, then you have to incorporate that into your care program. And I think a lot of that advocacy I got from my mom, because she was so, both empowering about sex, but also very like conscious around sex and like STIs and antibiotic resistant strains of different conditions. And also she's a huge advocate of masturbation, because she was like, who's your safest sex partner? You, but wash your hands.
Okay, we gotta talk about your mom though, because that, as a mother who is a sex educator, that is such a huge...
This is your future.
It's my future. But what's so fascinating about you is when we chatted about this is because my vision is to give my daughters especially, like a very sex positive, and I think of sex positivity through a freedom first standpoint, and it's freedom too. Like, of course, like sex positivity is freedom to love who you want to love, freedom to love how you want to love, freedom to explore, to delight, to touch your body. It's also freedom from all of the stories and narratives that tell you how you're supposed to experience your body and who you can experience your body with and what a woman does in the bedroom versus what a man should do in the bedroom, but freeing yourself from all of the social conditioning that disallows us from genuinely being our authentic selves during sex. And then also the freedom not to component, because you can't have great sex without turning down a lot of bad sex. And feeling like you have the agency to say yes to things has to come with the ability to say no to more things. So I want to give my daughters that, and I hope that they have an amazing sex life. And it feels like your mom was pretty aligned with that.
My mom was 100%, still is 100% aligned with that. Like, even after, we've gotten pregnant, she's like very still invested. And it's interesting because I think a lot of parents and some of my older family members were very much like, the first time I ever heard them mention sex was when I was like, we're trying for a baby. Oh, here's what you should do. Like my aunt, she used to teach etiquette, and she's a very prim and proper woman. She has all her beliefs about what a woman should do, what a man should do. She told us we should make eye contact when he releases himself. And that was probably the most intimate thing I've ever heard her say. Growing up, my mom was very sex positive, but I think she also has her own relationship with sex and sexuality. And so I kind of view my mom, because I was talking with my friend Novi about how every person in your life plays a role, and I'm like, my mom is like my externalized anxiety. So she would also just happen to mention something that was this could also happen. And I think because of that, it had this very fine line of I can make these decisions and I can do these things, but then also what if this happens? And then I also have my own anxiety, so a lot of it was self-generated. But she gave me a lot of freedom, and I think that it was the most ideal circumstances to grow up in. But I think a big part of it was I was so confused of the other side of the sexual repression. At my school, they had, I was going to this all-girls Catholic school. I went there very briefly because my mom was like, I don't like what they're doing over there, especially when it comes to talking about abstinence only. And they had this purity ring ceremony, and my mom wouldn't let me participate. And that turned me into a little bit of a pariah. And my mom's kind of explanation for why we weren't doing that was, she just basically was it's stupid. But I didn't really but these folks are doing it and they seem like they're getting something special for it. And so I think it's important to kind of contextualize things, especially for kids, because in hindsight, really screwed up that that's the only time the fathers are being invited to come to the school. The fathers are giving their girls purity rings. Then the purity ring's supposed to be removed by their husband, who will assume they're all heterosexual or bisexual and choosing men. And had I had that context, I would have been
long story short, it's stupid.
Yeah, and so that's how my mom was to me. But I was but why am I not participating in this? And then it was am I not pure?
Why did your mom send you to a Catholic school?
Pardon the interruption, but I had to tell you about the incredible sponsor of this episode, me. I mean, why not, right? It is my podcast. And on that note, did you know that Lovers is so much more than a podcast? It's a deluxe suite of services designed to help you reach your intimate potential. Now, there's tons of free tools, for example, SHAI. Yup, I trained in AI on the past 20 years of my work, so if you have a quick question and want to know how I've answered this in the past, go to the homepage. Then there's the newsletter, weekly letters for my lovers you can sign up for, and last but not least, there's my resource library of free quizzes and worksheets. Now, if you like these but want more, come a little closer. Introducing the premium paid experience inside the Lovers community. Connect with like minds, book one-on-one time with me, join one of my weekly classes, and of course, be a part of the podcast. The Lovers community is $20 a month for members and free for muses because yes, I created a free preview space so you can learn more before committing. Now, I know I threw a lot at you just now, so let's keep it simple. All you have to know is go to loversbyshan.com to get everything you need and nothing more. Again, that's loversbyshan.com.
Why did your mom send you to a Catholic school?
I wanted to go. I think I had this like weird curiosity about things that my mom were like, these things are dumb. Just like any kid. That's the thing. If you don't talk to your kids about sex, then they're gonna be more like, you know, there's just all this research that shows like, okay, well then you're kind of pushing them in the direction you don't want them to go. If you tell kids that the only time that they play with somebody who is of a different gender of them is because of sex reasons, they're gonna be more interested in those types of things. You have to like neutralize stuff and you really have to contextualize stuff. And so because my mom was almost working in the opposite direction sometimes, even if it was well-intentioned, I was like, what's over there though? You know? My mom was like, this is what you should be doing. This is the better. This is the light. This is the feminism. And I was like, but what's that? You know? So
like, what's repression?
Right? I'm like, that sounds interesting. I want to be a trad wife. And I'm playing. But, you know, I was narrowly an evangelical Christian trad wife while I was in Louisiana. But, you know, thank God. Found the light.
So you have a mom who's against organized religion, extremely feminist, extremely sex positive, wanted you to delight in your body, but also consequence conscious.
Yeah.
So it was kind of giving you the like, look at this amazing thing, but also this could happen too.
Yeah.
So
like a Pandora's box.
Yes. You came to your mom and said, I want to go to a Catholic school. Your mom said yes because she wanted to give you that freedom. And
then I kicked out because despite the fact that I was like on my own journey, I was 100% still my mom's daughter, and I got kicked out for talking about how abstinence-only sex education only represses women and causes teen pregnancy. And so they kicked me out.
They kicked you out?
Yeah.
Your mom must have been so proud.
She was so proud. She was like, that's what I'm fucking talking about. That's my girl, you know?
And then you went to college. Mm-hmm. So you went to a public school after you got kicked out of Catholic school. Went to a public school, got interested in Islam and learning about that, and then converted?
In college, yeah. But I think I had always been interested in Islam because the other interesting thing about my mom is that she kind of had this very Western perspective on feminism. And she said like she has since reconciled and grown. And I think it speaks to how once people are presented with accurate information, they're able to kind of let go of like more bigoted or limited ideas. But every time we would see a Muslim woman with a headscarf, like at Universal Studios or Disneyland or whatever, she would be like, oh, that poor woman. And like it was very much a like pitying this woman. The story is that she's being repressed by her husband. Me converting to Islam was, for my mom, it felt like she's just doing this because I'm against this. And whether or not that's the case, it is what happened. And I had to kind of like, that was the first time where I was really making decisions, or I felt like I did something that my mom didn't agree with. I had come out as bisexual. My mom was like, hooray, threw me a parade, you know? And I was like, Mom, I had sex for the first time. She's like, high five, let's go get tested, let's do this. I converted to Islam, and I was like, well, what is happening? Who are you and who raised you? And I think it's interesting because I've talked to people and people are like, oh my gosh, if I had, you know, converted to an organized religion that had more structure and more modesty, my parents would have been super happy. But I think my mom was concerned that I was doing this to run away from myself. And I think in some ways I was, because I was trying to figure out like my value as a woman outside of being fetishized and exoticized like I was the entire time I was in Louisiana. It was also like an interest I had for such a long time because I was like, well, my mom is super open-minded. Why is this the one thing she's closing the door on?
Yeah, I completely relate to that. Like, I talk about sex and relationships for a living. And when I wanted to start talking about sex, I knew that this would hurt my parents. And so I waited until they were on vacation in Florida. And then I put up a website where I shared in detail my sexual debut, because the premise of the way that I wanted to educate people was like, look, like, books and movies and TV shows are making this thing seem so salacious, so incredible, so interesting. They're doing an amazing job of hooking you with sexy people, great storylines. but they're providing you misinformation. So I'm like, what would it look like for somebody to bring you into their world, make it sexy, make it fun, make it relatable, but also make it genuinely true and relatable and vulnerable? All of the parts of it, the insecurities you had, the fears, the trip to the sexual health clinic afterwards. But I still had to write it like
the panic while they doing the test.
The panic, you know what I mean? All of it, every single feeling, I was like, why can't we just tell the full story? So that was my concept. I knew they'd be against it. I waited until they were away, and then I emailed them a link in hopes, because they were driving back, because, you know, this is like 80s parents. They're driving. I said this to Jerry. We drove everywhere. We drove to Florida. We drove to California.
Where'd you grow up?
Toronto.
Oh, okay. Oh, damn, that's a far drive.
So they had to drive back from Florida. It's 24 hours. I knew they'd have time to talk, cool off.
Yeah, they could get mad. They could come through full stages of grief.
Very wrong. They came in the door hot and bothered, but I was so hurt by that. Years later, I've been able to redefine that experience in my head of just my parents feeling extreme fear for my safety. Like my mom's initial thing when she came through the door, she was just like, don't you realize there's gonna be boys in circles laughing and masturbating and reading your stuff and laughing and masturbating? And I was like, what kind of porn are you watching where you think this is what people do? Just sit around and laugh and masturbate with their friends. But that is also just the perfect manifestation. Like her worst fear. You're gonna be having a daughter too. So in reflection of that, of just knowing that you have both a curious and rebellious spirit, and that's part of the gift that you can give to the world, is because you're going to go against the grain, but you're also going to see what the other side has to offer.
Yeah.
Right? So it's going to be a contextualized rebellion of understanding everything full circle and making a decision. And I also love the fact that you are very comfortable making a new decision once you get more information, once things change. And so it's like, what you said to me was a gift to me as a mom, of the importance of neutralizing and contextualizing things, and then making it so it's like, this is your decision. Because the more that you have a stake in what you want them to do,
they gonna do the other thing.
Yeah.
And I just remember,
unless they have more of an obedient personality, which I can already tell in my two kids, the older one is going to go against whatever I say.
I remember I was like a teenager, I was sexually active, and I was sitting down with my mom and my aunt Karen, and they were talking about the joys of sex, and we were like at a Mexican restaurant. My mom was like, sex is like your favorite flavor of ice cream. Every time you have it, you want to eat the whole carton, and if you don't like it, you take one bite and you give the box away. And I was like, I just remember being like, I don't want to have sex anymore. Like, it was just like, my mom was too invested in my sex life. This is so fucking weird. And so I think I relived some of those feelings as we were trying to have the baby, because I was like, I don't love all my aunties coming over and being like, so details. And I'm like, mind your business. Like, because to me, I was just like, I think for me, my own life journey, whatever, my mom's sex positivity, to me, sex is very private. And intimacy is very private. And I think for a little while when I first converted to Islam, that was a rebound reaction to feelings of like unworthiness as a sexually active woman. But now it's just my own personal feeling of like, no, this is my business.
What do you mean unworthiness?
I think that, so I had, when I was at LSU, I had been date raped. And which I hate that term because it like makes it sound like the casual version.
I'm really sorry that happened to you.
Yeah. What do we call it instead? Let's figure out a new thing. Yeah, there we go. And so when I think after that, I felt very like, I don't know, like the people who I had in my like community at the time, people who I don't talk to anymore, were like, well, you shouldn't have been drunk, da da da. Like all the things, like if you read like a list of things you shouldn't say to your friend if they have been raped. And I think on an intellectual level, I knew that those things were messed up. I had taken gender studies courses. I was like, in the feminist clubs. I was in PP Gen Action, and still I had internalized some of those feelings. And so I think in me converting to Islam, it was like seeking a fresh start, like this kind of like reverence and this weird respectability that I still experience that comes from people seeing you in a headscarf and feeling like you're off limits.
That seems so true to me too, because even though you've had many different experiences and lived a lot of lives in your lifetime, and thank you for sharing so much of the lives that you've lived here and the experience that you've had, it feels like there's a through line in values. Would you say that's accurate?
Oh, 100%. Like even when I was like a lightweight trad wife, truth is stranger than fiction, and I really believe that most people are good and they want to do better, but we're caught up in our own trauma too much to navigate out of that. And so I think for, what is the sister? Loretta Ross, who talks about calling in, about how we need to have some folks who are doing that work because we can't just write everybody off. That's not humanist. That's not abolitionist. You can't have abolitionists in your bio and go out trying to cancel everybody. You try to get rid of those mechanisms that call us to discard people. And I think I wouldn't have had that perspective had I not spent those 3 years with that white boy in that random town, Louisiana.
When your daughter comes of age, I'd love to know, because you have lived such a rich life and experienced so much. And I can't even like double click enough on that line of neutralizing and contextualizing versus having these mandates for how you want your kid to live their life, or even wishes for what religion they're going to subscribe to, what sexual orientation they're going to participate in. Like, it's the best that you can possibly do is to not really have such a tied wish to the outcome, but instead you just want to provide the context and information for them to make the best decision for themselves. When you're thinking of how you want to parent, what comes to mind for you, especially given the unique relationship you have with your mom?
Well, so when we were growing up, despite the fact that my mom was very against organized religion, I guess in the early 90s and 2000s, she was very like, we're getting dressed and we're going to church. And I need to go back home and ask her why that was, because I hated it. I was like, we were waking up at the crack of dawn to drive like from Altadena to Inglewood to go to church. Like that's a far drive, and I was a child, so it felt extra far. But as I got older, like I think I was also very curious about religion, and I like if my friends were having like a bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, I want to go and learn about that. Like, let's go learn about Judaism. Let's go learn about Buddhism with my Buddhist friends. And I think I want to raise my kids similarly, because I think that you have to choose your own path. I think that pursuing religion or spirituality is really personal. I think it's going to be about choice. It's going to be about freedom too, and also freedom from, like you were saying, because I don't want anything to feel compulsory, whether that's Islam, whether that's religion in general. And I think about it the way my parents taught me about social justice. Like, when they would explain to me like why, okay, this is a cute little story. So when I was a little girl, we went to McDonald's, and I was like, Dad, let's get McDonald's. And, you know, like we have McDonald's at home, like, you know, we have food at home. And he went to the store, he got McDonald's, and I was like waiting in the car with my mom. And my mom was like so annoyed, because she was like, why didn't she just say no? What the heck? And then my dad comes back, and all he has is like this little thing of fries. And I was like, what's that? He was like, well, you wanted a Happy Meal, and this man over here who's homeless, he doesn't have any food or a home where there's food. So I gave him the rest of your Happy Meal, but he didn't want your fries. And so I'm like sitting in the car eating fries, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, we do have food at home, and this guy doesn't have, and like, so my dad was always like peppering in little lessons like that. And I feel like it's really beautiful to live by example instead of live by mandate, because I get to see in real life, in real time, what it looks like to be a selfless person.
Mm-hmm. If people want more of your perspective, because you give it so eloquently and thoroughly, and this has been your gift, this is your calling, and something that you are extremely well known for. But anybody who is seeing you for the first time today, where would they go to find more of you?
So I have a show online called Smarter in Seconds. You can just type in Smarter in Seconds and the topic, and I've done so many topics. So that's basically, you get little doses of me in like 90 seconds where I explain different aspects of the world. And I really enjoy it because I was the kid that was really talkative, unsurprisingly. I was also a fun fact kid, and I become a fun fact adult, and I get to do that every day. And then I also have a podcast myself with my friend Michael Threets called Thoughts About Feelings, and our second season is coming out this fall.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Yes.
All that you're birthing into the world, all that you're giving to this world, and I can't wait to see what it gives back to you.
Thank you.
That's it.
Lovers, do yourself a favor and go and get Smarter in Seconds with your girl Blair. Honestly, I've learned so many incredible things from this gorgeous woman who is going to be an incredible mom. Congratulations to Blair and to the family on the bundle of joy, which should be arriving sometime in 2025. And speaking of arriving, next week we're kind of back to our normal schedule of things. We did actually have a community discussion around what did you learn about sex growing up and how has that impacted you as an adult. adult. It was a really enriching dialogue, but the truth of the matter is, I was down and out last week. Jared was down and out. Yancy, our graphic designer, was down and out. So we couldn't really provide the quality that we usually do, but the discussion, oh, it was so rich. So if you're interested, you can go on over to the Lovers community and take a listen. We came to a really beautiful aha and understanding in the end, and I would love for you to be a part of it. Again, sorry that I'm not able to proudly share this one, but the content is definitely worth a listen. Anybody who has kids know that during the summer, it's really just hang on for dear life and make it to September. We're here and we're ready to come back with the same Lovers, great content that you're used to, and we cannot wait to see you then. All right, lovers, have a great week. Bye.